because he's a great advisor. He definitely knows his stuff. And you could also talk to Eileen Hanlon. Go Eli.
He's going to host Saturday Night Live next week.
Oh, is it next week or is it tonight? Next week. Eileen's favorite player, Eli Manning, will be hosting Saturday Night Live. She made sure she made a special trip to tell me. Eli Manning fans, make sure you set your DVRs and DVDs for Eli Manning on Saturday Night Live. And we do have the Knicks. The playoffs start today. I could ride my own horn because I said it for years before the Knicks even made the playoffs. I said Isaiah Thomas was getting the payroll situation set up that most of the players' contracts would expire in 2010, which happened. They had about 8 players leave to free agency, 8 or 9 players that left the Knicks for free agency in 2010. And the Knicks would be under the cap, which they were under the cap. And people were looking at me like I had 10 heads when I was saying this stuff. When I was saying this stuff, people said I was crazy and nuts. But I said the Knicks would either get LeBron, which they didn't get LeBron, but they got some free agents. They went out and got Amari Stoudemire, then Carmelo Anthony, and then now Tyson Chandler, Baron Davis, J.R. Smith, and we're ready to roll with some good draft picks, Iman Shumpert, and we're ready to roll. But we're going to talk about that in a minute. First, there's some new developments that happen, and it's funny, it does have a sports angle. I worked for WBLS many moons ago, and I was a mixed DJ. Just to let you know, I was a mixed DJ. I did weekend mixes, and part of that included I had to report to BLS my top 20 list and my hot picks. So like there was a reporting day that I called in because it was before computers and all that kind of stuff. So I used to call in. It was a special day that they set aside and they compiled a list, and it actually became Frankie Crocker's top 10. Frankie Crocker used to do like a top 10 list every Friday or something like that. And either the day before, all the DJs called in their list. And I got props for that. I mean, once I got everything got straightened out with the paperwork, I could go to any radio station, any record company, and there were many in New York City, and get free material and get promotional. Because obviously, if a radio station wants to get their record played, they called us radio reporters. I was a radio reporter because I gave my list of new material, whatever the hot music was, and I told BLS what the hot music was at the time, and I did mixes for BLS on the weekends. But yeah, this week, KISS FM merged with WBLS. So people saying, what does that have to do with sports? Well, first of all, just to let you know, Emmis Broadcasting owns KISS FM and Hot 97. They used to own that jazz station, that jazz station. I don't think they own that anymore. But it was like Jazz 101 or something. Dan, do you know the name of that station? Light Jazz?
CD 101.9.
Is that still around, CD 101?
No, son. It's not around.
Yeah, they used to own that. So Emmis owned that radio station. They used to own three FMs. So now they still own 98.7, but now they're going to lease it to ESPN Radio. Now, ESPN Radio now, for people who are watching and just getting information, ESPN Radio comes on 1050 ESPN. They have Mike and Mike in the morning. They have Stephen A. Smith. They have Luco and Lombard or something like that. They've got, who's that other guy that comes on at night? There's another guy that comes on, but they have quite a few guys that come on, but they're moving now to 98.7, and they're going to simulcast both stations at the same time. In September, 1050 will be going all Spanish, but it's going to be Spanish sports. Actually, ESPN Spanish stations are called Deportes. So I like the move. A lot of people say it's an assault on black radio, on urban radio. I mean, it's up for debate. New York had four urban stations with BLS, Power, Hot 97, and KISS. Now you have 3 urban stations, which is still good. You have BLS, Hot 97, and Power. And you're going to have ESPN Radio now at 98.7 in the middle of the dial. So, and they're going to switch up the schedule a little bit more. But I'm happy for Stephen A. Smith. Stephen A. Smith will be broadcasting starting Monday at 1 o'clock. So you check for him at 1 o'clock on 98.7. Forget the KISS. 98.7 FM. And also the Knicks. Let's not forget the Knicks. The Knicks are broadcast on ESPN too. So you can actually listen to a Knicks game, actually, which is good. The station comes online Monday at midnight, ESPN. So if you want to listen, if you happen to not be at your house and you want to listen to the Knicks game, which is going to be playoff game number 2 against Miami, you'll be able to listen to it on 98.7. So that's the whole angle as far as ESPN. ESPN at 98.7, and then you have KISS FM and WBLS merging. And I was always wondering, because there are 2 women that I know who work for KISS, and they went to BLS, and I was always wondering, why did they go to BLS? And then now I understand it now. I guess this was a move that people internally knew what was going to happen, but it happened this week. But this is something I guess they've been working for a year because, like I said, there's a couple of women that I know who are from Staten Island, who work for KISS, and who are now working for WBLS. I mean, they switched probably a year or 2 ago. They both work for BLS. And now you have BLS KISS merge. Unfortunately, there's going to be some shows that you're not going to be able to hear anymore because of the merger stuff that used to be on KISS. And employees who used to be on-air jocks for WBLS, they're not going to be around anymore either because of the merger. I guess they're going to take the best of both stations and merge them. So that's what it is. ESPN Radio. All right, moving right along. If you have a question or comment, send it to me at DJ Mills at Twitter. That's DeeJaymillz at Twitter, or you can also hit me up at Hardcore Sports at Twitter with any of your questions. Hardcore Sports at Twitter. So yeah, getting right to the Knicks. The Knicks play today, and the Knicks have a 0-3 record against the Miami Heat this year. But Miami Heat did not see, like, the full Knicks. Like, every time the Knicks play the Heat, either Melo was out or Stoudemire was out or one of the players were out. So I'm going to be curious to see what goes on with this with the Knicks versus Miami Heat. Dan,
Yeah.
what do you think about this series with the Knicks and the Heat?
Well, I think about it. If the Knicks are ready, they could win the series because Miami has so many flaws, and the Knicks have to win the first game. They have to win this game today. They have to send a message to Miami that y'all not that good. And also, if you look at Miami as a whole, I keep telling people this: they don't have a center. Now, who's their center? They don't have a legitimate center. I mean, who's this guy, Anthony?
Joel Anthony.
He's not a good center. No way. They don't have a point guard, and they don't really have a bench.
Bibby was their point guard last year.
Yes, he was. Well, you look at the Knicks, they have Baron Davis, who's a very decent point guard, and he comes up big in the playoffs.
Absolutely.
You're talking about Miami's big three. Well, look at the Knicks' big three. Chandler, Stoudemire, and Anthony. Only thing those guys have to do is play good defense. Also, the weakness of Miami, everybody who's a Miami Heat fan or who think the Knicks have no shot, Miami, if you watch the Dallas-Miami series last year, the finals, Miami has a problem with zone defenses when teams play zone defense against them. You can beat Miami. So the Knicks, they have a defensive coach in Woodson, and I'm pretty sure Woodson is watching film and knows about the zone defense that hurts the Miami Heat. So basically, Knicks have a big shot to win the series.
Yeah, Woodson is very excited, and Woodson is excited. I think he's got some tricks up his sleeve. Absolutely. He's been waiting for this opportunity. Woodson has been waiting for this opportunity, and I believe he's got some tricks up his sleeve for Miami. And this is a big thing now. It's a lot of pride, especially with Woodson. I don't think he's going to let this guy, Spoelstra, who he probably thinks is wet under the collar, out coach him. He's not going to let this guy who hasn't even played a game of NBA basketball in his life out coach him. So I think it's going to be personal with Woodson. He's not going to let this guy who's wet under the collar I'll coach him. And then I want to add also, and you know what? I'm not going to, because I'm a Knicks fan, I love the Knicks. And out of all the teams in New York, I think I love the Knicks the most. Out of all the teams in New York, I love the Knicks the most. I don't know what it is, but I just love the Knicks. But I'm not going to allow my love for the Knicks to cloud my judgment. I'm just going to basically, just like I did with the Giants, even though the Giants won the Super Bowl, I always kept it in everybody's ear that they were 9-7, and that a 9-7 team had never won a Super Bowl. So I want to still be objective, and I'm going to keep the facts the way they are. I'm not going to stretch it. I'm not making any crazy predictions. I'm just going to give you the track record. Now, the track record with the Miami Heat and the Knicks in the playoffs has not been good for the Heat. The Knicks won 3 out of 4 series against the Heat in the playoffs. In 2000, the Knicks won. They beat the Heat in the Eastern Conference semis. In 1999, the Knicks won in the conference quarterfinals. In 98, the Knicks won in the quarterfinals, which is the first round. And in 97, the Heat won. And the Heat won in 97. And Dan and I remember, I think we were watching that game when Knicks players came off the bench during a fight. It was a big brawl that ensued between the Heat. And some of the both teams bench is cleared. So what happened was basically more Knicks came off the bench than the Heat. So they actually suspended everybody for a game. They suspended it was almost like a circus. And as a Knicks fan, you couldn't believe what was happening because you waited all year. I think the Knicks won 60 games that year, if I'm not mistaken. The Knicks won a lot of games that year under Pat Riley. And they came off the bench. And
Van Gundy was the coach then.
Van Gundy was the coach. I'm sorry. Van Gundy was the coach. They came off the bench, and they suspended Patrick Ewing, and it ended up being, and the Knicks, before this game, the Knicks were leading the series 3-1. Before that, that particular game, I think it was game 5, and they suspended Ewing, they suspended all the players, they suspended Starks, and, it was a circus. Because half the team, actually, when they went on to play game 6, well, game 5 they lost because whoever fought, because I can't remember who was fighting. But they suspended everybody.
It was Alonzo Mourning and Larry Johnson.
It was it was Alonzo Mourning, Larry Johnson, and there was other people.
That was the famous Van Gundy,
When Van Gundy was holding on to Alonzo Mourning's leg.
Yeah.
And he was kind of like being dragged. And,
Matter of fact, I don't think it was that. I think it was P.J. Brown and Charlie Ward. I think Charlie Brown undercut P.J. Brown. That began the all-out brawl.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think Riley was still here. Was that under Van Gundy or Riley?
Riley was coaching the Miami Heat.
Yeah, it was that Charlie, because there was a bunch of fights between Miami and and the Knicks.
It was Pat Riley was coaching Miami and Van Gundy the Knicks.
But it's so long ago. But
the Knicks should have won that series. And the thing was, everybody was saying the Knicks had a chance to knock off the Bulls.
Right.
They had gotten, a better team. They had Chris Childs in the backcourt. It was a team that, people said that the Knicks have an excellent shot of winning an NBA final.
And then you had a healthy Ewing.
Yeah, it was Ewing's last hurrah also. After that season, Ewing broke down.
Yeah.
So, and the Knicks supposed to have won. And to this very day, I have no respect for David Stern. I think they fixed that series. They made it where the Knicks, that set the franchise back. That fight actually set the franchise back until '99. But everybody knows the Knicks were supposed to go far that year.
Yeah, everybody. Yeah, I forget how many games that were won that year. I have to go back and look at it. But the Knicks were unstoppable that year, and it was a travesty. I think it's one of the biggest travesties. And the Knicks have been hurt over the years. It's not only that. There's a bunch of other stuff that we can't get into right now. But the Knicks have been hit not with just that, but just a lot of bad luck in the playoffs. Yeah, I just think about that incident where the Knicks were in the playoffs again. What year was that now when they kidnapped Marcus Camby's sister in the middle of the playoffs? Now, what the heck was that about? Was that 2000? What year was that?
2001.
Yeah, they kidnapped. The Knicks were leading the Toronto Raptors by 2-1.
Yeah.
Marcus Camby's sister, something happened with her. She got kidnapped, and then Marcus Camby, who was a star player for the Knicks, had to take a leave of absence to handle his sister's, whatever happened with his sister, and then the Knicks lose through 2 games, and they're out of the playoffs behind that. So there's a lot of nonsense. There's a couple of other things. But I think going back to the 97, I think that was one of the biggest travesties to suspend half the team. And then what you actually had now, it's a joke. You have 8 players for the Heat and 7 players for the Knicks playing in a playoff game. Only like 7 players suited up. And John Starks is running the point. It was horrible. It was horrible. Absolutely horrible. But yeah, so hopefully we'll get some revenge with all that in mind. We've been following this Knicks team for a long time. You could tell. 3:30, ABC, Knicks Miami Heat. We have the Bulls. So do you see any other surprises, Dan, as far as the playoffs are going? You see any other?
Well, I like the matchup between Philadelphia and the Bulls. The Philadelphia plays very good defense. That's going to be an interesting series between Philly and the Bulls. It's just that Derrick Rose is kind of banged up. I don't think he's 100%. And I see Doug Collins, the Philly staff, they're going to try to take advantage of Chicago. The problem with Chicago, at times they have a problem scoring. They go for about 5 minutes without scoring. But the problem is Chicago stops you from scoring. So it's going to be a pretty interesting series. That's interesting.
Yeah. Also, you have Doug Collins getting revenge because he was fired from. So there's some bad blood between Doug Collins and the Bulls. He was fired from the Bulls. So he's got something to prove here. So you got some stuff. You got some history now. Maybe not between Philly in particular and the Bulls, but between Doug Collins, who used to be a coach of the Bulls, now coaching the 76ers. We've got Indiana and Orlando. We know Orlando's not the same without Dwight Howard. So I don't know if that's going to be a series. You have Boston and Atlanta.
That's a great series.
Atlanta's it has home court advantage.
That is a great series because both of these two teams play defense. I think they're supposed to have Al Horford back, Atlanta, if I'm not mistaken. It's center.
Yeah, I think so. I think they're going to have Al Horford. But, yeah, I think that's a good series also. Moving to the Western Conference, you have San Antonio versus Utah. I think that San Antonio's been on a tear. So San Antonio's is probably going to definitely beat Utah. You have Oklahoma City, Dallas, which is a repeat of last year's Western Conference Final. Don't sleep on Dallas, even though they're the 7th seed. They got a bunch of veterans on there who already have rings. You got guys with a bunch of rings. You can't tell them anything. They got a ring. You can't tell me nothing, G. I have a ring. I've got a championship ring. So Oklahoma City's got their work cut out for them in the first round. They're playing Dallas in the first round. You have also the Lakers versus the Nuggets. And you have all those Knicks that went over in the trade. Danilo Gallinari, Wilson Chandler, Timothy Mozgov. Well, Al Harrington was signed as a free agent, but you have Al Harrington. So Corey Brewer. So you got a bunch of ex-Knicks playing in L.A. I think that could go either way. Because you got a young team. You have a young team, and then the Lakers don't have Metta World Peace. And we didn't even get a chance to talk about Metta World Peace and the elbow and all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of chit-chat behind the scenes on Twitter between Magic Johnson and Metta World Peace. But, yeah, the Lakers are not going to have Metta World Peace. So that's going to be a series. Minus Metta World Peace. Lakers minus Metta World Peace versus the Denver Nuggets, the Nuggets are a franchise striving to make their mark right now. Striving to make their mark after Carmelo Anthony, after the Carmelo Anthony trade. So that's going to be a series, and it could go 7 games.
Now, if it does go 7 games, the Lakers got the edge because Metta World Peace will come back in Game 7.
Yes, absolutely. So that's another footnote to this whole situation. You're right, absolutely. And then we have the series I like: Memphis versus the Clippers. The Memphis Grizzlies versus the Clippers, and I'm picking Memphis to win. I love those are 2 teams I like. I like Blake Griffin. I like Chris Paul. I like what they're doing with the Clippers. I like them. But I think I like Memphis better. I mean, they've got Gay. They've got Zach Randolph, who's the next Knick. They've got a young team. And they signed the brother with the gun as a free agent, and yeah, they've got Gilbert Arenas. They signed Gilbert Arenas. They got Marc Gasol, the Memphis Grizzlies.
O.J. Mayo.
O.J. Mayo is going to be crazy. They've got a team. Now that's a team. They got Tony Allen. They almost could remind me of the Knicks a little bit. They kind of remind me of the Knicks because they got a bunch of big guys. They got a guy they got Tony Allen, which is like Iman Shumpert, but Tony Allen is a veteran. He's a steals guy who comes off the bench. He's scrappy steals guy. You got Gilbert Arenas, who could come and do anything on the court, similar to J.R. Smith. There's a lot of similarities between the Grizzlies and the Knicks. You've got Zach Randolph, who's a tremendous power forward. You got Marc Gasol, who's a tremendous center. You got Rudy Gay, who could score with any of them, who's a just prolific scorer. And then you got O.J. Mayo. Man, we've run out of time. My goodness, I just looked up. We got 20 seconds left. Dan will be with us for Kentucky Derby Day, which is next Saturday. Kentucky Derby Day. So check us out next Saturday. Thanks for watching another segment of Hardcore Sports, and we'll see you next week. Peace.
All right.